Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Hannah and this is Jar of Fireflies. Here you'll find content all about my life as an Orthodox Jewish homeschooling mother of 3. And today I'm giving you a homeschool update. Okay, so we are about halfway through the school year right now, at least according to the calendar, definitely not according to where we are in the curriculum, but that's okay because homeschoolers, we can take our time. But anyways, I wanted to give you guys an update of where we're at, what's been going on, what's working, what's not working, and what we've completely ditched, which is a lot. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's start with my daughter. So my daughter went into kindergarten this year, and at the beginning of the year, I had started her out using the Brave Writers Jotted Down Language Arts program, as well as Wild Math and Blossom and Roots kindergarten curriculum. Those were kind of the main things that we were doing with a few other things sprinkled in. I did do a whole video on exactly what I was doing for her, and I will link to that in the description box below. But anyways, so almost nothing I was doing with her worked out. Like, we've pretty much completely changed everything. Like, to start with, the main curriculum, I feel really bad about this, but I did not like it. I really did not like it. From like the first week, I was like, oh, I gotta do this all year? I don't like it, but my daughter liked it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna kind of suffer through with her. But then slowly she started to not get so into it either. So yeah, I think it was just the beginning of the year excitement for her and starting kindergarten and something new and exciting and all of that. And she was so into it. And then later you could tell she wasn't so into it. But what we're doing now, she loves. But we'll get to that. There were just a lot of things with this curriculum. I still love the literature selections. We are still using those literature selections and we're going through those. We love the history notebook. So we are continuing through the history notebook every week. We've kind of ditched the whole science aspect of it. The Burgess Animal Book for Children is so boring. I did not like it. I was having a lot of trouble reading it to her because I thought that it was so dry and I just couldn't really get into it. And I like to get into the books that I read. I love reading out loud to my kids. So we kind of ditched that and we started listening to a read aloud podcast that was going through the book. And my daughter was really excited. She's like, oh, my podcast. But then like we turned on the podcast and she just would not even pay attention. She was really just not into it. So we kind of ditched that. And then it didn't make sense to do the nature notebook either. Okay, the language arts notebook. My daughter mostly just doodles. She's not so into this whole writing thing right now. And she's only 5 and I'm okay with that. I'm not one to push writing or reading too early, so I'm really not worried about that. At some point last week, I realized her language arts notebook was missing. Like, it's just lost. So we're not using that anymore because I don't know where it is. So yeah, basically all we're still doing from that curriculum is the history notebook, which is really fun. It dives into your own personal history and your family history and things like that. And we are doing the literature selections because I love a good read aloud. But that's really it. We do just in general in life incorporate a lot of artist studies and classical music into our lives just during the day and during our weeks. So she's not really missing anything out by skipping those parts. Okay, now reading for my daughter. Now she's kindergarten this year. I'd like her to learn how to read at some point during this year. Again, she's a very young kindergartner, so I'm not too worried about it if she doesn't. And we haven't started reading yet. My plan was to start her on the Bob books, and we just haven't started that at all. But that's okay. She hasn't really been so ready, but now she's starting to feel ready. Now that she's getting a lot more confident in math. And when I pointed out the other day that she was reading numbers, because she could point to the 2 and be like, that's a 2. And I'm like, so you're reading numbers. And she was like, oh, could I read books? So now I think we're ready to start books with her. So I purchased a program called Pinwheels. It's from Rooted in Language. I've heard amazing things about it. Julie Bogart over the Brave Writer highly recommends it. Totally trust her, so I bought it. And that is my plan to use with her. And we probably will use that sort of in conjunction with the Bob books because I really do enjoy those for early reading also. But I wanted to try this new reading program with my daughter. Okay, math. I had started out the year wanting to do wild math with my daughter. And basically we started doing it. She was super into it. And I still think that it would be a really good fit for her. But the wild math for kindergarten started out at a level higher than my daughter was. For many reasons, I'm very slow to start formal education with my children. And so this includes things like all the letters and all that stuff. So there's a lot of kindergartners who start kindergarten already knowing how to read. My daughter is definitely not one of those. Neither was my son, and I doubt my toddler will be either. but she did not know any of her numbers by sight. So it was very difficult for us to start that program. I just felt like she didn't have the basics needed to start wild math at the beginning of the year. So I started her on Math Siege, which is a program that I had used with my son last year, and she absolutely loves it. She sits on the computer, she plays her game, she's so proud of herself when she makes it through like the little tests at the end of the levels. So that is a really, really good fit for her. Will we go back to wild math? Maybe, I don't know. I have like kindergarten, first and second grade of wild math, so we might as well at some point. There's some really great concepts in the wild math curriculum that I may just pull in while we're out playing and just sort of sneak it in on a camping trip or something like that, but not necessarily incorporate it as a regular part of our weekly learning. Okay, I had also planned on starting the fairy tale project from the Brave Writers Jot It Down with my daughter. We didn't do that either. I think we might have done like one fairy tale, and I realized that I just basically planned way too much for my daughter. I mean, she's in kindergarten, she's 5, and barely so. She doesn't need all this heaps and heaps of work. She doesn't have the attention span, and quite frankly, she should be playing. So that's what she does. We do our school, we do a little bit of school, and then she plays a lot. So we also do a lot of cooking, baking together, things like that. We do our trips to the zoo and out to nature group and just to parks and hiking and camping. She has a very full life of learning. Doesn't all need to be a formal learning sitting at a table. And I just had too much of that formal learning sitting at a table piled on top of her, and it was no good. And that was my fault. And get a little excited there at the beginning of the school year and try to throw everything in there. But so we're putting that off until next year, and next year we'll probably do the fairy tale project with her, and then the year after she can do the other writing projects in Jot It Down. I had also planned on using book seeds on the weeks we weren't using Jot It Down. Yeah, that didn't happen either, for the same reasons that I just explained. Yeah, I just planned way too much. We may do some book seeds over the summer or something like that, but they're really fun. I enjoy them, but it was just too much. Okay, so what I am doing with my daughter is we are using Build Your Library's Level 0 curriculum, which is an awesome 30-week, very light program that goes through world geography. It's so much fun. She absolutely loves it. She really enjoys the sticker books. She's having so much fun with all the stories and reading. There's more great, fabulous literature selections in there, so we're just spending so much time reading together. And it's a great fit for us, and we love it so much. We are still using the Rabbi Juraval books for Hebrew. That is something that we do together as a family, and that is a great fit for us. It has been for years. We are loving it. And then the final thing that I have done for her is we've added in this alphabet notebook to work on her Hebrew, learning Hebrew letters. So she's probably going to learn to read Hebrew before she learns to read English. And this Hebrew notebook is something that we printed off that another mom made in one of our Orthodox Jewish homeschooling groups. It's super awesome. I'm so appreciative. If you're watching, thank you. We love it. Oh, speaking of, I printed a second one also for my toddler because he told me that he really wanted his own school, so we can learn some of the alphabet with him. So he has his own little notebook and he does all the tracing and coloring and matching and things like that. It's fun. It's a little extra time for us to spend together, and if he picks up a little Hebrew, great. Okay, so that is what my daughter is doing. She has obviously had massive changes as to what I had planned at the beginning of the school year, but where we're at now is so good. We're in such a beautiful place. She loves school. I love school. It is great. She's also still doing Girl Scouts. We're doing that on her own. She's a Juliet. She doesn't have a troop, and that brings in a lot more life skills and things like that also to the table for us. And so that is really fun, and we are loving doing that together. Okay, moving on to my son. My son is in 2nd grade. It is my 3rd year to homeschool him. I guess if you're starting in kindergarten, I never know when to start homeschooling. Like, how many years have you been homeschooling? I don't know my kid's entire life. But, okay, so formal education, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd. This is our 3rd year. Okay, so we are still using Build Your Library with him. We started the year out using Build Your Library as level 2. He's been using Build Your Library since kindergarten at level 0, and we are loving it. It's still a great fit for us. The literature choices in particular are so much fun. That's always what he wants me to do first. He loves just sitting around playing Legos and stuff while I'm reading from the literature selections. Now, for my son with math, we did try wild math with him at the beginning of the year. He asked me if we could do wild math, so we started the year doing wild math and doing math seeds, which is what he had finished off last year doing, was the math seeds. And let me tell you, so the wild math, it just still doesn't really work for him. He goes outside and he just wants to play. He doesn't want to count or add or subtract or make fractions. Like, he's just so not into it. So we are doing the math seeds with him on the computer, and that's working out well enough. We are also sporadically using Jotted Down this year. We may or may not get through all of the writing projects in there. We shall see. But we have been working on it. It has been fun, and we'll eventually get through it all. We have plenty of time before he starts the next one through the Brave Writer, which is Partnership in Writing. The years are kind of loose. Like, you don't have to do the whole program in a year. You can do it over 2 to 3 years. So yeah, not worried about it. It's all working out. Speaking of the Brave Writer, we are using the Brave Writer darts, which are where we're reading a book out loud together, and then we go through all of these literary elements, things like that. So we are really enjoying that. I cannot recommend this program enough. Like, it is so great. The darts are fantastic. He's learning all of these great concepts. The projects that they suggest and the games that they bring into it to help reinforce these concepts are so much fun. I don't feel like I'm just sitting up there lecturing to him about language arts and having him do a worksheet. Like, no, we're reading this fun book, we're talking about it, we're making jokes, he's getting to whip out the highlighter, we're cutting things out of magazines and playing games, and it's so much fun. It makes learning so much fun. It makes learning just feel like life, which is what learning should be. So it's great. We're loving the darts. And we have a monthly subscription to those, so every month we have a new one that we do, and we've stayed pretty on top of that for the most part. We'll drag it out a little bit over the summer. Okay, so for Judaics for my son, as with my daughter, he is reading the Rabbi Juraval books. As I said, we're doing that as a family. That is still working out great. We love it. We are also using for my son the Bright Beginnings books. This is something we started at the beginning of the year, and we're quite enjoying that too. He gets really into it, and he'll do like, I'll ask him to do 2 pages in a day, and he'll end up doing like 10. He really, really enjoys it, and it's really working to teach him how the words work. What are the root words in Hebrew? What are the prefixes and suffixes and how things go together? Translating sentences from the Torah. It's very fun. I'm really liking this so far. We're probably about 2/3 of the way through book 1, and then we have a second book after this. I did add in a couple of handwriting workbooks for my son in Hebrew. These are Hebrew handwriting workbooks. And we use those, I'd say, kind of sporadically. It just sort of depends on how our days are going. But it's just something else that I wanted to add in to help work on his handwriting muscles in general, to improve handwriting overall in English and in Hebrew, but also really to help reinforce the way that Hebrew script is written. Okay, so other than that, we're just kind of continuing as a family with our homeschooling lifestyle elements. We go to our nature group every week. We have a bunch of camping trips planned this year. We went on a few last year also. We've gone to the zoo, we've gone to the Arboretum, we've gone picnics all over town, different places. We're exploring our parks, we're going on hikes. My son has Cub Scouts, my daughter has Girl Scouts. I am starting to toy with the idea of putting them in some other sort of an extracurricular activity. On the one hand, I really want to, because I know that it's good for them to have a teacher who's not me at some point in their days. And on the other hand though, like, it's a pandemic and all of that, and I also worry that they get overscheduled. I don't want them to be overscheduled. So I'm kind of debating that. We've been looking into Krav Maga for my son, which is a martial arts, and we have been looking into ballet, or possibly going back to horseback riding for my daughter. She's having trouble making up her mind. So we will figure out what we want to do there at some point. I'm in no rush with the state of the world right now. And our lives feel like they're in a really good balance of how much school we're doing, how much play we're doing, and also how much time I have, because I don't want to be running around in the car all day doing things and spending all my time teaching them, and then I have no time left to do things like laundry. As fun as laundry is not, it does need to get done. Other things we're still doing, just listening to a lot of really good music together. We're reading our good books together. We're having our poetry tea time on the regular, more regular than we ever have been before in our homeschooling life. So that's pretty fun. Everybody loves the poetry tea time. We've incorporated a lot more just random Shakespeare into our lives. And then I've added in a few things for myself, which I think are really helpful for the kids. I'm doing a lot more reading for myself. I'm reading more books about the Charlotte Mason philosophy of homeschooling. I'm reading this great book right now called Mother Culture, which is incorporating Charlotte Mason philosophies into my life as the mother. And I'm starting to memorize some poems myself. My son is struggling with some of his poem memorization. It's more of a motivation issue than anything else. So I thought that maybe it would help if I memorize some poems. So I'm working on memorizing some fun things from Shakespeare because I just really love Shakespeare. One final thing that we are focusing on this year is doing 1,000 hours outside, which with all of our camping trips is probably going to be pretty easy. But basically it's a movement started by this mama. I found her on Instagram. I think it's just the coolest little concept where basically you track your hours that you spend outside and you try to get to 1,000 hours. Doesn't seem that hard, right? Except that that's about 3.5 hours a day, and that's kind of a lot. But we're getting there, and I know we'll have a lot more in the summers, but it's good motivation to keep us outdoors more, even when the weather's not perfect like today. Okay, so that's all that I've got. I just wanted to pop in and give you guys this little homeschool update so you could see what is going on. I feel like we're getting into a little bit more of a homeschool groove here, 3 years later. My toddler's gonna get all the best of this homeschool world because by then I should have it all figured out, right? Wrong, because he'll have a different personality. Okay, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I am so glad that you are here. Please be sure to hit that like button if you did like it, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'd love to see you here again. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next upload.